So welcome everybody to the Wednesday morning series. I will note, because some of you see these YouTubes, we have a special guest on for the first week of December. Gavin Sharp is going to be talking about boundaries for addicts. So I think that will be an interesting topic. It's a one-time. And then starting in January, Mary Franz, who wrote The Trust Solution, for couples in how to navigate rebuilding trust, is going to be taking the first week of the month slot starting in January. So stay tuned for that. You can always find more information on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. But we have Kristin Snowden, co-author of Life Anonymous here. We are in the 11th month, so we are to the 11th step. So Kristin, what do you have for us?
So hopefully all of our lives are slowly changing in dramatic ways at this point.
In positive, dramatic ways.
Positive, yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully we are moving in that direction at this point. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristin Snowden. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California and a certified life coach. And this is a once a month webinar that we do live the second Wednesday of every month, 9:30 Pacific time, where I educate you on all the latest research and understanding of how to make relationships work. We talk about the good, bad, light, dark of all relationships, how they can get really brutal and devastating and destructive, where there's addiction involved, infidelity, all the way over to just the regular, more commonplace struggles that happen during the lifespan of a relationship, communication issues, kind of trauma issues, shame stuff that comes up that really create obstacles to you enjoying companionship and intimacy with your trusted loved ones. So with further ado, the past year now, we've been working on a chapter each month on my book and Scott Brassard's book, Life Anonymous, where I try to help you understand from a non-addict's perspective, and Scott is a recovering addict, how the 12-step concepts, the 12 steps that are used in Alcoholics Anonymous and in the 100 of fellowships of the various types of anonymous programs, the 12 steps of how to, it's essentially how to do relationships more healthily, how to dramatically change your internal framework of how to view the world, how to deal with challenges. I argue in Life Anonymous that these are classic concepts that whether or not you're trying to get recovery from a particular addiction, or you're just trying to navigate a really messy, difficult struggle or crisis in life, you can take these 12-step concepts and apply them to your life. They help you make changes very tangible, very concrete, and can be very empowering. So we are now on step 11, and step 11 reads, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, one of the biggest tragedies of the 12 steps, in my opinion, is I think we really turn off. So when there's so much discussion of God or a higher power or God as we understand him, that 12 steps really loses a lot of people who've been essentially traumatized by religious constructs. The God of their childhood was judgmental, was shaming. I know from my personal experience, I was more of what we call like a transactional type Christian. So you do good to get good things. And so when life didn't go right for me, I was kind of like, well, screw God. You know, if life's going to suck with or without God, I'd rather just stick him back in the medicine cabinet and just go about my business and do things the way I want to. So I want to take a moment before we talk about step 11, that there is a place and a space for people who still struggle with, is there a God? Is there not a God? Atheists, agnostics, etc., or people who've experienced a lot of trauma and hurt around a religious construct. There are a lot of people who start off 12 steps saying, no, I ain't gonna pray to a God. This is my favorite chapter of all the books, because this is this step is where I realized everything that I learned in my psychology field, everything that I learned when I started learning about neuroscience, just the way the brain is wired and how it works, and then everything I learned in addiction recovery. Step 11 is where they all meet up and kind of say all the roads lead to this particular concept. So let me give you a really quick summary. Step 1 through 3, the really quick soundbite for it is, I can't, God can, so let him, which is step 1 through 3 is just saying, look, let's own that what we've been doing is not working for us. We're powerless to whatever's going on in our life or relationships or circumstances, and our best efforts have not been able to work. So I need to wave the white flag, bring in my team, right? Some kind of higher power, some kind of professionals, some kind of community who can love me and support me and walk with me non-judgmentally and help me make the next right choices, because I have shown an inability to do this on my own. It's actually supposed to be your strength, not your weakness, to say that I can't do this on my own, because by the way the story ends is none of us can do this on our own. We all need love and help and support. And I hope that's only becoming more evident through this long-term pandemic and all these kind of cultural and geopolitical struggles that we've been facing for so long, is the need for connection, the need for love, the need for non-judgmental support is just more evident to our mental health, our daily mental health. Steps 4 through 7 are our internal work. I use the word personality dialysis, right? 4 is digging into our history, our good, bad, light, dark. 5, 6, and 7 are really sorting through what the 12 steps calls character defects, but what I just call is the human condition. We all have our default settings of, I can err on righteous indignation, or when I'm hurt, I rage, or when I feel vulnerable, I shut down. We all have these settings. Addicts, it's a little more obvious because it's, when I feel scared or criticized or not enough or in shame, I go out and I go to my addict behavior. Non-addicts are a little bit more higher functioning in that respect, but they still might overspend, overeat, overwork, overperform. And I talk about that. And then steps 8 and 9 are when we turn our work from internal to external and we work to repair our relationships. Start looking at how our behaviors and our choices impact other people. And we ready our heart and our mind and check in with our intentions and motivations to repair and reconnect with loved ones or people of the past, etc. And do that kind of keeping our side of the street clean. That's a common saying in 12 steps. Steps 10, 11, and 12 are what we're on right now. And I talked about 10 last month, which is the maintenance steps. These are the idea that, okay, we've done all this really tough work. Okay, let's make an equivalent to like a workout weight loss. Let's say I'm type 2 diabetic and I'm really struggling with health issues. So I kick my butt to eat healthier, change the way my framework for how I view food. I really have that supportive community. I'm checking my food diary, my emotional eating. I'm doing weigh-ins, and I'm trying everything to get my cholesterol down, my heart at a better condition. So that's like steps 1 through 9, equivalent for this metaphor. Then let's say I reach my goal weight. I'm healthy again. I have my blood sugar stabilized. I have other things stabilized in my life. There is a maintenance process, right? There's the idea that if you don't kind of keep up a daily practice, that you're going to go back to your default setting. You're going to go back to your emotional eating. You're going to go back to a sedentary lifestyle that contributed to all these problems in the first place. So steps 10, 11, and 12 are genius in that they understand, great, you made these wonderful changes in life. Congratulations. But this is now going to need to be incorporated into a daily practice. And so step 11 is just saying that you need to have a daily practice of being still, being contemplative, slowing down, remembering what your values and your goals and your intentions were through all this. All the things that were highlighted, for 5, 6, and 7, understanding what your character defects are, what I'm capable of when I'm not at my best. And I need to slow down and be contemplative with the help of some kind of higher power to, and this is the emphasis too, for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. I mentioned at the end of this chapter that I did have a religious practice. I would pray pretty regularly. I felt like there was some kind of energy source of a God, but my prayers would always be about God bending to my needs, to my wants, that I need this to happen, that I want this to happen. And then when I didn't get it, I'd become an indignant a-hole, quite frankly, or just, go slide into victimhood, which there's a season for that. So let me acknowledge that that's grief and loss, essentially, when life doesn't go the way you want it to, that's grief and loss. And there's a season for that. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it's meant to be a transitional phase where you move into that. But step 11 is acknowledging that we need to be sitting back and kind of understanding what the universe is handing us, right? I'm going to use the word universe, God, higher power, energy, interchange, like it doesn't matter. It's the reason why, we know that a religious practice in the 12-step world is open-ended because they add in wording such as God as we understand God, which is like whatever is a non-shaming, loving, non-judgmental, supportive source for you that you want to lean into, that you want to spend some time and energy and a space in, you want to spend some time there. That's that God that we're talking about. That's the higher power that we're talking about. And it's spending some time there daily to do your inventory, to redo your inventory, which is what step 10 asks you to. Who am I? Who do I want to be with other people? How do I want to represent myself? What's important to me? What are my values? How do I want to show up? How do I need, do I need to repair? And then ask this God or higher power energy, what do you want me to do with this? What am I here for? Slowing things down. And by the way, let me emphasize, for those of you who are like higher power, schmire power, I'm going to get into the neuroscience of this in a little bit to let you know this was an aha moment for me, because I wanted to be like prayer, schmare. I can tell you where to put prayer, and it's not in a very nice part of your body, because I felt very victimized by prayer. I felt very victimized by my original interpretations of what a God is. So I want to acknowledge that, but say that I found a lot of peace and aha moments for myself when I got into the neuroscience of how our brain manages crisis and struggle and hurt and pain and shame, and how slowing things down, things like the polyvagal theory and other neuroscience type of perspectives really helped me understand that step 11 is quite genius. This was written like in the 1930s, before there was MRIs, before they knew all this brain science of addiction and how our brains are wired around crisis and trauma and anxiety, etc. But they knew, without that information, the importance of slowing down, using prayer, using mindfulness, using meditation, using a contemplative process to slow things down and make the best choice, make the next right choice, ask for his will to be done. For, I can't change this universe, so I need to learn how to bend my body to this universe while also still being the best human that I can be, and still reaching for the goals that I need to reach. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's see, what do I want to say? Let me give you a little background for my history. I was a very spiritual, religious person, and then I had a series of really unfortunate events happen in a short period of time. My mom got sick and died of pancreatic cancer in like 4 months. I had 2 kids within 18 months, all born within that madness. My husband got out of the military and into civilian life during, by the way, the 2008 economic crunch of the world. So stressful and dealing with life was like an understatement. And so I was a transactional Christian. So it was really like, I call it like the cash and prizes Christian. I was partially a Christian for peace and love and connection and community, but partly I expected to win because I was a good person. So it turned me into a very angry person when I wasn't winning. And my marriage was basically ending and we were separating, and I was looking for answers. I was looking for that peace that I'd had years ago that I couldn't get. I was clamoring for it. I wanted it because I didn't want to be angry and a victim and so untrustworthy of everybody and in such like a hateful, poisonous state. So but I couldn't grab religion again. Like I couldn't get it. I couldn't fake it. So I would listen to books and podcasts, and there was particular people that really resonated with me. At the same time, I was working in treatment and working with people with some really strong, amazing recovery. And so I had this people with great 12-step recovery, speaking to me and showing me through their life the joy that they had and the harmony that they had from this 12-step practice. Then these great minds of like Brene Brown, Richard Rohr, Clarence Doyle, some other people like Nadia Bolz-Weber, a few other people who ironically, when I got into their stories, also had 12-step recovery under them. And or like Richard Rohr, he was an addict, but he spent a lot of time at meetings because he worked at a church where meetings were, and he'd sit in on recovery and really learn from the 12-step process. And then I started investigating psychology, like how to get through crisis, how to manage trauma, how the brain wires around trauma. And all roads led back to the fact that you have to have some kind of practice, some kind of spiritual practice. And I don't want to offend anybody by that name or that word, but some kind of slow down practice that us in the human running race will go into a default crappy setting. I say in here that we all choose, when we're running that rat race of humans, we all choose different forms of relief or escape from that. We kind of numb up so we can get through the chaos of life. One person can jump from one toxic intensity filled relationship to the next. Another will seek power through angry outbursts and posturing threats towards others, or like climbing the corporate ladder, kind of stepping on people on the way. While another will just recoil and isolate and disengage. And that's just how they all manage the insanity of life. They're very different behaviors on the surface, but they're all serving a similar purpose: to disconnect from the pain, to distract from it, to numb it out, to create the appearance of having control where there is none. So unfortunately, we can be very dangerous to ourselves and to others when we're in that disconnected state. So it's when we're disconnected, consumed by these uncomfortable feelings, right? We can't run from them. They've caught up to us. We feel shamed in a moment, too vulnerable, rejected, unlovable. And in that state of fear, shame, vulnerability, discomfort, that's when we can behave incongruently to our values and our goals. I mean, you ask most drug addicts, alcoholics, I work in treatment, so I see where they come when they've reached rock bottom. None of them intended to die or harm themselves. None of them intended to lose their jobs and suffer public humiliation. None of them intended to betray their loved ones or lie to their face or manipulate them to keep their addiction going. None of them originally intended those kind of things. But in the insanity of their addiction and the insanity of their quest to numb, to distract, to run away from, that's the state where they hurt people. And I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just giving you context to understand what my experience has been working in addiction. So that's why step 11 is so important, because it's in that state of disconnection, when you feel those uncomfortable feelings winning out, when you're not staying focused in on who you are, what your path is, what God's will or this universe's will is for you and how you need to bend and adjust and learn and struggle to get there, that's when the bad stuff happens. So let's see what else. So I'm just trying to get across the point that you just need to kind of acknowledge that a stillness practice has to be necessary. Scott suggests if you're not into a particular spiritual practice, you can do these 4 basic things. Make your spiritual quest a regular part of your daily routine. Set aside time where you won't be disturbed. So set aside time to maybe try meditation or do a yoga practice or just sit still or do some kind of reading or podcast or something. Create a sacred space in which to conduct your daily spiritual practice. This may be something formal or elaborate, but again, it's sitting in the easy chair, sitting at your kitchen table with your cup of coffee, who knows, but just setting aside time and space to make it more purposeful and meaning. Then develop a spiritual routine. This could include guided meditation, a series of affirmations, a specific or non-specific prayer, writing out a gratitude list, etc. Are you guys getting that this doesn't have to be a one-stop shop? Okay, there's flexibility here. There is absolutely flexibility. What works for you? If all else fails, find a spiritual mentor. Pick someone who has what you want in terms of his or her spiritual connection and do what he or she does. You know, it's that fake it to make it. You look like you have a life of peace and understanding, and you ebb and flow with the chaos of life so amazingly. How do I go to there? Help me. And hopefully they say, I would love to have you help you. It's part of my spiritual practice, which is step 12, which is what we'll talk about. Do note that in that step 11 acknowledges spirituality, spiritual practices change and adapt and grow over time. Like I said, I used to pray for God or energy or whatever you want to call it, the universe bent to my will. Now I regularly pray to help my control inflexibility, my control freak inflexibilityness bend to the madness of society, you know, because I need to calm my neurobiology down so that I don't become a horrible person in the state of the chaos that's flowing around me. And I make the best choices around that. You know, it helps me do the best that I can do in those moments. So a few more points. This daily practice can help us feel more empowered and prepared for when the shit hits the fan. Similar to the way that a military will drill their soldiers over and over and over again to make sure that they just kind of go into like a default setting and perform the way they're supposed to during those high stress, high intense situations. Doing these spiritual daily practices help you prepare to perform during similar chaotic, intense situations. So it's just kind of, look, go to my default setting. I'll do those deep breathing. I'll take that daily, nightly inventory and prayer, and I'll process it then. I'll talk about it then. I'll get to like, what do I need to do about it then? It's drilling you so that you don't go to those default, not great characteristics that you're capable of. And it allows you to stay conscious, connected, and mindful. So let's get into the tools. Okay, I've given you a bunch of reasons about why this is important. Let's talk a little bit about the tools. So in my book, I have a list of just everything from all the books that I've read, from Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps Score, to just, again, Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory, Brene Brown's shame work, of what the science and research is showing help your mind and body and spirit stay connected and downregulated. Because that's essentially the difference between higher functioning humans and those who are still struggling, is that they all still experience shame, trauma, struggles, hurt, chaos. But those who are higher functioning have that list of tools, those fallback coping skills that allow them to fully process what is happening, the shame voices, the story I'm telling myself, what might be going on with him or her, how I need to respond to this, what's the best choice, what's the not so great choice, God, my body feels so uncomfortable and angry and sad and hurt. What am I going to do about this? Do I need to lean into a person to cope with this? Or is this something that I can manage and handle on my own? These are all the different things, the processes that happen for a more higher functioning person versus someone who's really, really struggling with mental health issues, addiction issues, their trauma. They're stuck in their trauma responses. There's nothing wrong with this group of people, but I'm just trying to help you understand the steps that allow you to get over here. You know, they're often usually paralyzed by their trauma. They haven't done the work, the trauma recovery work, to be able to stay contemplative, stay connected, practice that mindfulness or the prayer to get there. So some of these things listed are things that I list that are just very highly correlated with down regulating your body, creating that stillness that help, from grounding techniques, mindfulness, body scanning, breath work, dance, movement, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, pets, animal therapy, or just holding and hugging and kissing your pets, sleep exercise, screaming into a pillow, sighing, that resets your body. It's really interesting. Standing on one foot, counting backwards from 100 by 7, try that. Journaling, gratitude lists, tapping your arms or legs rhythmically, side to side, etc. I talk a lot about this, by the way, in one of my videos, the autonomic nervous system. I think I talk about Stephen Porges's information about how to heal from trauma. And so I'm just going to encourage you to check back on those videos. But let me just do, so the idea is that you need to figure out your nervous system is different than my nervous system. Things that hype you up and stress you out may be very, very different than mine. And remember that when it comes to relationships, ladies and gentlemen, stuff that upsets your partner may mean nothing. Like some really basic, benign example. I come from a loud family. I am loud. The running joke for one of my daughters is like 3 different preschool teachers asked us to get her hearing checked because she talked so loud. And like by the 3rd time, I was like, nope, we're just loud. That's just how we operate. It's our genetics. We're loud. Well, guess what my husband doesn't really like very much when we're in heated discussions? Loud. So his nervous system is loud is uncomfortable. Loud is too much for me. It overwhelms his nervous system. So if I want to have a productive conversation with him, I have to work really hard, despite what's going on in my nervous system, to keep my voice in a calm state, right? Which takes a boatload of mindfulness, like checking in with my body, all these kind of things that step 11 is talking about. That in these moments, I need to say, do I want to win this argument, or do I want to really understand what's going on? Why he's so upset, get across why I'm upset. If the answer is yes, then I need to acknowledge that his nervous system is different than mine, and I need to adjust to that. Conversely, he needs to also learn things that are upsetting to me, that maybe I respond better with hugging or physical touch during a tense argument, so we can get that calms my nervous system down so we can be more productive. It takes work, ladies and gentlemen. But I would really, really encourage you to check out some of my videos that I have on like the autonomic nervous system and how we're wired and how our connection with other people impacts our wiring. It can really, really, really be life-changing to look at everything from a framework as all of us being these like walking, talking nervous systems, these walking, talking like cellular feedback loops. And I can impact it. I always joke, I can use my power for good or evil. I can whack you out and drive your nervous system insane, or I can use it for good and calm it, co-regulate it, make it feel loved, connected, safe, etc. So doing some work, step 11 is genius, because before they had all this research, they knew there was something magical about this, something magical about slowing things down, doing contemplative, quiet, prayerful, mindful work to get to that safe nervous system state. So I always joke, I'm going to finish up here, but just say some of my clients that continue to push back and just say, I don't like 12 steps, I don't want to do this. I just know, okay, like I'm not going to push back on you. I'll meet you where you're at. Then fine. You've not been able to do this on your own. It's not worked. I have so much history to show you that that's accurate. So just find a safe group of people who, by the way, all struggle in a similar way that you do. So they can totally call you out on your crap. They can kind of smell a rat before you even smell it for yourself. So they have similar acting out patterns. They have similar stories. So they know, oh, I know what this is. I know what's going on here. You're slipping into righteous indignation, or you're slipping into the angry, victim mode. So find a group of people, safe group, non-judgmental, non-shaming, who can walk with you through that, and can call you on your stuff, and just do some kind of contemplative, meditative practice. It's not, I mean, that's essentially what I feel like the 12 steps provide you. The fellowship is, it's a group of people. There, as I said, it's a safe, intimate, empathetic, and honest environment that keeps us on track, connected to, and congruent with our values and goals. As long as we feel a loving connection and presence that helps us to release our shame and stay as congruent and connected as possible, we are effectively working step 11, but really all 12 steps. A place where I can go and say anything and struggle with anything and have people say, me too, I get it. How can I love and support you through this? Including acknowledging that there's some kind of higher power spiritual practice to it. So at the end of this book, I get into the polyvagal theory, which sounds crazy, but it's actually a really great map to help you understand the different crises levels that your body gets to: the ventral vagal, the sympathetic state, the dorsal vagal, and really helping you learn, okay, what down regulates you? What does help you feel peace, harmony, connection? When are those moments? Is it like petting my dog? Is it riding horses? Is it going for a walk in nature? Is it doing yoga? Is it having a deep, intimate talk with a couple trusted loved ones? What is it? It's unique to you, but you have to find it and start bringing it into a daily practice. And that is my invitation and challenge for you, ladies and gentlemen. That's it.
All great stuff. And, I really like what you're just talking about with, you have to find it, but you need to find it in those moments when you're not in the height of a crisis. If I'm in a fight with somebody, that's not a good time to go, oh, how do I figure out how to downregulate? I need to have a plan. I need to have it be, I know those moments are coming. So what do I need to do to be proactive and go, okay, when I start to feel that, like you were talking about your relationship, and, like when you're already loud is not the time to try to figure out, why isn't this working? It's like, I know I need to enter this and down regulate. A lot of what you talked about too was being in that down regulated state. So how do we learn to do that is a daily practice, whatever that looks like. I also really affirm that what you're talking about is how my spiritual practices have changed and morphed in and become more personal, but more relevant for me, over the course, because I too was raised in a certain type of, religious, setup, shall we say. And, and I turned my back completely on that because it was not congruent with it, with, addiction, and that didn't really go together. So I had to choose, and I of course chose the addiction. And so then coming back, the 12 steps actually helped me find what is working for me. And I know a lot of people go, oh, I don't believe in a higher power. For those, and for a partner, I'm not saying this to you, but for those in active addiction, I'm going to challenge you on that, because honestly, your active addiction is your higher power, because you do whatever it is that your addiction tells you to do, despite the negative consequences. Kristin listed out a whole bunch of consequences of people didn't plan on that when you had the addiction, but gosh, all of these consequences happen, and your addiction's going, yeah, that's still a good idea. No,
Right.
So I think part of the 12 steps is being willing, and just accepting that we're not going to do it perfectly, but being willing to be on the journey and learn and grow. And when you're talking about finding the group of people, I'm like, the easy place to find those people is the 12 steps. And always it's take what you need and leave the rest, so if, and I've heard, God is good, orderly direction, God is love. I mean, there's so many different things, so just accepting that, I can't, I can't do this on my own. I tried a whole bunch of times, I still get, I still, but, and I have to take a breath, but, I get all these people that call and like their life is in chaos, but they want to think about it some more and, they want to continue to do their way, and unfortunately, that is addiction. And so, I always say, we're here when and if you decide.
Right.
But and a lot of what you're talking about is slowing down. And I heard a message this last weekend, and I heard the title of it, and I turned and looked at my husband and said, "Oh, I'm going to hate this one." And it was about the problem with hurry, and I'm always like, check off a bunch of boxes, keep doing the next thing, and it's very hard for me to slow down. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to just listen to the message and check it off. I'm going to take it in. And I changed some things this weekend. I slowed down my schedule. I reached out to a friend who actually, was struggling in physical pain, etc. Went and visited, and she told me that how meaningful the visit was. I took time, like I didn't, go wash the floors or something, it was like I took time, went and connected with her. And she said, I felt so much better. I actually was able to go for a walk afterwards. And I was like, and all because I actually listened and went, I'm going to slow down. It is hard for me, but I'm really trying this week to intentionally integrate that into my life. Not perfectly, not compliantly completely, but I'm trying. So, but as with everything, I'm willing to grow, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to do it imperfectly, but I want, not the transactional, but I want to be the better version of me. I want to be more serene. I want to be more congruent, and that will always, continue to take work. So we have a bunch of questions, so I'm going to get started with those. I had final disclosure from my SA husband last Thursday. I'm sorry, because I'm reading that and I'm going, oh, that means you probably have had more, and I'm sorry about that. So, and he lied and withheld information, so maybe not final. So next days after, I'm going to go formal disclosure. I pointed out to him about the lies and confusion in his formal disclosure. He admitted to it and changed his disclosure to take polygraph yesterday and told the polygrapher about it. He was tested on lies in both texts of disclosure, original and fixed, and passed as truthful with a strong mark. But my trust that I started to develop slowly is shattered all over again. So I don't trust the polygraph result. I'm now re-traumatized and lost any hope he can be capable of being honest at all times. How to even talk to him now? P.S. I'm working with a very good CSAT. He has a CSAT and goes to 12-step program. He's human. No human is 100% truthful. Sometimes it's because we don't even know it ourselves. So, but please talk to this, Kristin.
Yeah. This is, I can't remember what we were talking about in which video, but we were talking about the fact that your partner isn't someone that you can lean into right now, right? Speaking of nervous systems, you're saying this person is so unsafe to you and you question everything that he says is truthful. That is not someone who's going to downregulate your nervous system. That's someone where you're going to feel like, are you my partner or are you a murderer? It just really, you're getting so many unsafe messages that you have got to find a place and a space and an environment to downregulate with. It is not going to be him. He's not going to be your source of safety right now, and that's okay, and that's understandable. Maybe a year from now, you'll start seeing him say, before you catch him in a lie or before he's faced with a polygraph, he might say, wow, what I just said was a lie, and this is the truth now. And you'll hopefully start seeing him purposefully adjust his behavior to be more truthful. Fingers crossed. In the meantime, if someone's not telling the truth, they're not a safe person. And so while you might be married to him or with him and living in the same home as him, I don't know, you didn't say that in any of that, that's not going to be your source of safety. So if you're going to survive this process, you're going to need to find a group of people or all the things that I listed, on like the nervous system, my videos on the nervous system of betrayal trauma, to really start saying, okay, you give me all physical cues that you're dangerous and scary and I don't feel safe with you. So I need to find out, is it when I go out for a walk? When is it when I do prayer? When I lean into my spiritual group? When I have, maybe I go to S-Anon meetings, I'm a participant in We Tong Glen or some kind of, sex and relationship healing.com, betrayed partners meetings. That's why they exist, because you're not supposed to be doing this alone. This is not the difficult thing about being a betrayed partner in sex addiction is it can be so shaming and humiliating. The experience can be that the last thing you want to do is share your story with people, but that's exactly what you need to do. The irony of betrayal trauma is that your nervous system, your brain has now been wired to say people are unsafe and they're scary. Look what they're capable of doing to you or behind your back. The only way you can change that wiring is to find that small group of other people who prove that wrong, who can love you in spite of that really dramatic story that you have to share, the hurt and pain. They can love you through it. They can sit with you through the discomfort. They can show you empathy and compassion. That's only going to be done in a group setting. Betrayed partners, you have to go to a safe and supportive group setting. Really, I can't emphasize that enough. And you're saying, how do I even talk to him now? I want to validate that. I mean, his behavior isn't one to feel like you don't need to go out of your way. If he's in recovery and he's working a program, hopefully he'll get there. But you have every reason to feel off-putted by him and keep him in his place and space. I don't know if you want to add something, Tammy.
I do. When you said he's in recovery, if he's in recovery, I was like, he's not in recovery. So, and that's my knee-jerk reaction, because if you're in recovery, you're cleaning up the lies. You're working really hard not to tell them in the first place, but you're doing like Kristin said, you come back and, you clean it up really quickly. He reset the clock again. Formal disclosure is supposed to set a foundation of healing. And we say this all the time. But addicts are addicts, and if you're not entering it truthfully, don't do it, because this is what happens is now you are exactly re-traumatized. You've lost hope, and there is hope. You can heal regardless of what he does. So I want to slice that out for you. Is regardless of what he chooses to do, there is healing that you can do. I don't know if your relationship can survive all this. That will be up for the two of you. And if his actions start to show that he actually is learning, that the lies aren't working. But he's just reset the clock again in a very detrimental way. And so if it takes you 18 months to rebuild trust from the last time he does something like this, if he doesn't do something like this again, unfortunately, you're looking at still another long haul. Now, he can, I don't know if he's read Out of the Doghouse, but that's how to build trust. I don't know what he's done. Like, if he's just working with a CSAT, I hope he's actively engaging and he's working with his peer groups, and he's doing the men's drop-in groups on sex and relationship healing.com, and he goes and tells them, I lied on my disclosure and here's what I've done. And he starts getting that accountability that Kristin was talking about. You have to have that accountability, because this is where this is where the lies are. This is where the denial is. This is where all that, that stuff is. And I know people can continue to lie to their even amazing therapists because they're withholding. So lies of omission are just as detrimental. So Dr. Rob and I talked about polygraphs on the Monday night webinar. You can check that out if you want to, but you getting support for you, not just the CSAT, but there's a betrayed partner drop-in group at 12:30 today on sex and relationship healing.com. Another one at 8:30 tomorrow morning Pacific time. Please join those, get support. All the other resources that Kristin was talking about, get support for you, to grieve and heal, regardless of what he does. But his actions will be really telling. So,
let me just say this. The next question is, do you feel like acceptance commitment therapy would be helpful in our situations of betrayal, trauma, and sex addiction? My really quick answer is I'm aware of ACT. I've never been trained in it, so I really don't understand the foundational concepts of it. So I don't know if you can speak to ACT or not.
No, I was going to say I've never heard of this, and so I was going to ask you to. So we're going to
I've
have to
heard of
take a
it. I
pass
know
on
it's
that one. So.
along the same vein of almost like motivational interviewing. I think
Okay.
like meeting them where they're at. But I just don't know enough about it. I'm sorry to to comment on it and be able to answer that question.
Well, and so here's one of the things, and I this is knowing zero about it, but my first thought was addicts lie. So unless the addict is doing what they need to do to, like the 12 steps, and they're doing the things that they need to become truthful, I can give lip service to I'm accepting and committing and all of those other things, but as a betrayed partner, you still know that that person's lying, and so possibly, but it to me would be in conjunction with other things. That would be my thought. So, okay. I'm the betrayer, was found out approximately 18 months ago. Have been sober since discovery, feel strong in recovery and appreciating the person I am becoming. Though sober, my spouse doesn't feel safe. PTSD is evident. I recently heard an interesting conversation about co-regulation, helping my spouse regulate difficult emotions during conversations so we can move forward into feelings we want to create together. Do you have recommended resources to understand how to grow in this practice? This feels like
Um,
what you're talking about with your husband, like, you need to
yeah.
downregulate your voice.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's a really great later step for sex addicts and their betrayed partners. Obviously, when things are just exploding, I wouldn't recommend you're not you could not possibly be a co-regulating system for them originally or initially, but 18 months in with good recovery, that might be a really great time to start exploring. So like I said, I had that video, the like the autonomic nervous system of betrayed partners, and even addicts, by the way, they have very sensitive nervous systems as well. And so going through that path of figuring out, okay, it feels safe when he or she does this. Okay, it really scares me when he or she does this. So there, it could be most of this stuff is like nonverbal stuff. It's posturing. It's to hug or touch someone or to give them distance or space. Eye contact. Sometimes eye contact's too much. Sometimes eye
Mhm.
contact's safer. Um, Tones of voices, etc. Those are all meta messages to your nervous system about what's safe and what's not safe. So you have to, it's usually a lot of experimenting. So finding out, okay, I do feel safer and down regulated when this happens. Okay, no, I don't like this. And you can ask a lot of questions around that. So the polyvagal, to answer your question, the polyvagal theory is really great. It gives you some really tangible skills. I think even Deb Dana has a book that's like exercises that can help you down regulate that might be appropriate for you and your partner to go through to start figuring out, okay, does this make you feel safer when I do this or that? How does this response, to this inquiry or this struggle, how does this help you, feel? And this, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what can create the safety and intimacy that's been missing from most people's relationships. A lot of us who work in sex addiction recovery and with betrayed partners, one of the things we always say is we do this because if done right, these people can experience love, connection, intimacy, liking themselves and liking their partner more than they ever thought down the road later on using these types of skills. You can either learn to lean into each other to get through this crisis or continue to turn outward, which is exactly what was happening when you were in your addiction. So this is really an opportunity um, to start figuring out each other's nervous systems. And so I'd encourage you guys maybe listen to some of the polyvagal. Stephen Porges and Deb Dana are the big names of talking about the nervous systems, but also Dan Siegel talks a lot about Dan Siegel and Alan Shore do a lot of talking about what they call interpersonal neurobiology. Stan Tatkin, I know his PCT model talks a lot about that. I don't even know what PCT stands for, but for some reason,
PACT. It's I forgot
PACT.
what it stands for. Yeah, but
Right. It's all
yeah.
understanding that we have these powers within us. Like if me and Tammy were talking and we're talking about our kids and something that we're really mutually interested in, and you took our heart rates and our stress hormones, if it's something that felt safe and we liked it and it was a common interest, our stress hormones and our heart rates would start matching. We have powers, we can use them for good or for evil. And it's really about looking at this person like here she's, an alien from outer space, and what makes them feel safe, what is in their history that they like, that they don't like, and it's also their responsibility to figure it out, of this does feel safe. So it's a really great healing, something to add into the healing process, in my opinion.
So, and a couple of things I wondered about is, what is your partner doing to work on, because the PTSD is real, so has your partner done some trauma work? Like, Kristin was doing the tapping. Well, that's EMDR. There are a number of things that can be done, and it doesn't magically fix everything, but it sure can help, take the visceral reaction out of, triggering moments. I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and they were talking about this. There's an uncomfortable situation, and it always happens in a car, and they feel trapped. And so making sure you're having a difficult conversation in a safe place where, because this person was like, I'm just going to start meeting them at the other place, because they always have these conversations. They bring up things I don't want to talk about, when I'm in a trapped situation. So it's tone of voice, it's, how to touch or not touch space, all of those kinds of things can help. And I think it's also fair to say, I'm feeling good about my recovery, but I don't see that. I don't see that you're feeling that there's safety. What are you looking for? Have the honest conversation. What is it? What are my actions going to need to be in order for you to start feeling like, okay, that person's showing up? Now, Eddie Caparucci on the Wednesday morning series did, and talked specifically to partners last month about, if your person is in good recovery, what do you need to do to step into the space? So, you may carefully want to maybe watch it together, and see, have that conversation. So Dr. Stan Tatkin did do a podcast with Dr. Rob on sex, love, and addiction too. So you may want to listen to that, but he's got, other videos and things out there too. So there's lots of tools to use. But I'm thinking that there's a disconnect between you feeling like I'm doing great with recovery, your partner going, I'm still in trauma and I'm not feeling safe. So something that, is either being picked up as still unsafe, or your actions are not quite showing, that you are safe. So glad you're here. Keep coming back. So the next question is, my spouse desperately needs me to share the thoughts and feelings flowing through my mind. No. Okay, my spouse desperately needs me to share the thoughts and feelings flowing through my mind throughout the day to feel safe. Other than continued mindfulness, what are your tips to bring my feelings to the surface and verbalize them so my spouse knows me on an intimate level again?
This question is not uncommon, Tammy. I know there's always that huge bridge and confusion about what should be shared with your sponsor and your therapist, and then what needs to be shared with your spouse, right? Because it's not going to be uncommon that you might go through withdrawals. You might see someone on the street that's in your arousal template that triggers you. There has to be a space where you are sharing it and you are talking about it. Your wife or your partner may not be the appropriate person.
I think it was the flowing throughout the day. And I was like, that's a lot. So anyway,
I don't think anyone wants to hear the thoughts going through my head in a given moment. So again, it's almost the same stuff that we were just talking about with the previous person, is be curious. That Brene Brown talks about that. There's really easy step when you feel hooked by emotion or you're processing emotion. My most tangible way in is don't forget, feelings trigger an actual physical sensation. So if you're not numbing out and distracting too much, and you slow down and you're contemplative, right? If you're mindful, you're doing a practice of daily, like, be still. Then you'll know a sensation of, oh, I'm feeling really anxious. I'm feeling, right? It might even be your spouse walks up and goes, what are you thinking right now? And I'll be like, well, immediately when you say that, I feel a tightness in my chest because, and then you get curious, why? What's the story you're telling yourself? I feel a tightness in my chest, that's stress. And the story I'm telling myself is, I want you to feel safe. So I want to give you an answer that makes you feel safe, but I'm so afraid that I'm going to say the wrong thing. And that alone is a process of leaning into your partner and having a conversation. Something I didn't say with the previous question, but I can say right now is this getting curious. It does two things. It gets you to really dig into your physical sensations, remain connected. Like I said, this is a practice of mindfulness, is being curious, connected, congruent. What's going on in my body? What is this sensation in my body? What does it mean? What would I call it? And then what's the story going on in my head? What's happening that's causing this anxiety? That's like super ninja work right there. I mean, really great work to do. And then to learn to just kind of say it in the next step to your partner, or to your therapist, or to your sponsor, whomever. This is what's going on. And it's like a muscle, it's like running a marathon. First, you might only be able to do a little bit here or there. It'll kind of be weak, but you'll slowly start growing and being able to do that. So my spouse knows me on an intimate level again. That's hard. I mean, you guys, like, same advice as I'd give the previous question is start exploring each other's nervous systems, listening to these podcasts about healing and what feels safe and what makes me feel more connected to you. Does she need to know every single thought, feeling, or spouse need to know every thought, feeling going on in your head? No, but they might want to know, like, oh, I'm thinking about this, or I'm anxious about this, or I'm struggling over this, or I'm feeling really resistant about this. They're looking at you and they're getting feedback from you, from your history of acting out, lying, not saying what you mean and mean what you say. There's so much uncertainty there that they're just trying to grab hold of certainty and find out everything that you're thinking about so they can react and respond to it. So part of it is them trying to, like I said, with the previous person who'd kind of been lied to during disclosure, they might need to partially lean into their group of people, their supportive group, to feel safe again, because they're not going to be able to always feel safe with you. And figure out what helps their neurobiology, their nervous system feel safe, but also have very direct conversations with you. It feels safe when you do this. It doesn't feel safe when you do this. I don't know. Anything else, Tammy?
Well, I like having a daily check-in makes tons of sense, but
Yeah.
but if it was the running, if it's the like every hour I need to check in and tell you how I'm thinking and feeling, that feels like I know partners are looking for safety, but but it also feels like everybody's attention is focused on how you're thinking and feeling, and oh my gosh, so it's like the addiction is the center of everything, and in order to live a healthy life, and like, we need to do our work, we absolutely do, and we need to be checking in, and we need to be mindful, and we need to be sharing on certain levels, but to have this be the the overall focus. Now, I did have to I used to I'd say to my husband, I've been thinking, and he would have this he would have this and he, bless his heart, he has gotten past that, and I just go, just wait, because he doesn't know what harebrained thing he thinks I'm going to come up with. So I think that was a little bit of my, like, no, my husband doesn't want to know every single thought I have, oh my God, but he does want to know that I'm safe, and he does want to know that and I do share with him, I do tell him I'm really struggling with whatever, or I just need a hug right now, or whatever it is. He is a safe person for me to share who I really am. But that takes work, but I would encourage you, we've talked about in other webinars too, having a 20-minute, a couple times a week where it's a safe place to talk about where you are in a relationship, daily check-in, but having this other place to have these conversations. What is it? I love being curious. What is it you're looking for when you're looking for the flow of my thoughts throughout the day? What is it that you're looking for? And if they say, I'm looking to make sure you're safe, I'm looking to make sure you're not triggered, well, that's your job to handle your triggers and your, all of those things with your sponsor, with your, 12 steps, whatever. So, so glad you're here. And please, if your partner hasn't been in some of the partner support groups, would love to have your partner join too. So next and final question, because we're out of time, but we're going to answer this one. I have made an agreement with God to park this during the time in my recovery from abuse and betrayal and childhood trauma because it was not helping me. And I got angrier and angrier with God, but I really can be upset why he has made the human body life so complex with all the different parts of a human, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, nervous system, and brain. You almost have to have a PhD and degrees in biology to understand all of this stuff. It is also why mental illnesses are existing in the world and why the purpose of all of this harm they cause. Do you understand what I mean?
I do. I validate you. I mean, look, when we meet crisis, we can either shut down and recoil, or some people just lean into like, I want education, right? Most of the people that find me are they're that latter version. I want every answer of what is betrayal trauma, how it impacts, how trauma impacts my body. I want to talk about it. I want to process it. I want to learn about it. That's how I personally have gotten through my stuff. We'd call that in the polyvagal theory, that's the sympathetic nervous system response, right? It's when life pokes you and agitates you, you go, okay, what do I need to do about this? What else do I need to learn? I'm in a state of discomfort. What do I need to change? How do I need to respond to? It's annoying, but it's a really important physical state for us to be in, because it's saying something's not working. I feel and I need to change something, the environment. I need to move. I need to talk. I need to speak. I need to learn more. And so I applaud you. I know this stuff is painful. I know it's uncomfortable. But if you think of anything you've ever done in your life that's meaningful, it usually isn't done in a state of complacency. The greatest lessons you learned were often not in a state of complacency. The greatest achievements you've achieved were usually very uncomfortable and vulnerable and exposed, and you question whether you're going to be able to get through it or do it. And then when you do, the reward is like 100 times more because you were so exposed and it was so scary. So I've learned to have this love-hate relationship with suffering and struggle and hurt, because I would have hated myself saying this because I was so hurt and so in pain. But it is from all my trials and tribulations that I kind of grew a new layer of complexity within my psyche and my body, a greater complexity of empathy and compassion for other people that I don't know if I would take any of that stuff back. You don't want to go backward.
But I also wouldn't experience great joy if I didn't know pain. If I'm just neutral, I'm a robot, and I don't want to be that. I will take the pain because the joy that I experience on so many levels, far exceeds the pain of losing someone I love. Well, it's because I loved them. So I had the joy of loving someone. I want to care. It's worth it to go through the pain, the grief, the hurt, all of those things, because the joy far exceeds that, the connection, but I validate your pain too. It's and I want to understand, and I like, I like all the science, I like all of that, but honestly, on a body level, like I know that I can heal. I know that I can learn and grow. I know that I won't always feel, the awful, because like Kristin said, I'm really going to work on how do I find serenity? What do I need to do, to actively, do something different? So I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry for the pain. I'm glad you made an agreement to park it for the moment, and that you're reaching out to get help and support to heal. So that was a lot. Thank you for being here. And next month is step 12, which happens to be, it wasn't before, but it happens to be my favorite step. But it wasn't before, but now it is. So anyway, so stay tuned, all of you. Join us again next month for the final in this particular series with Kristin. As always, you can reach out to her. She's got lots of great content on her website, Kristin, Kristin, Snowden, SNOWDEN.com. She did mention before we hit record that she will be starting another partners group in January. So check that out as well. So thank you all, and we'll see you. I'll see some of you next week, and I'll see you, Kristin, next month. So
Yep.
bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.